Hello and welcome to the Autism News Network podcast. This is a new podcast in the family of the Autism News Network. It is called the Godfather of Autism News podcast, and it's going to be hosted by myself and the Godfather himself, Scott Biehl. Hello, Godfather.
Hello, Dr. Gwynette. How are you?
I'm doing great. We are also joined by a few other Autism News Network participants. Let's welcome Jennifer Engel. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for being here. Chris is here. Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Good to see you. And our newest member of the Autism News Network, Kyle.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Kyle. And also Erin Hopper is here, who is one of our Autism News Network staff. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Dr. Gwynette. Hey, everybody.
So we've got an awesome group here today. And we are going to bring you something very new and special. We're going to talk about some recent news articles in the area of autism and then tell you what we think about them and bring you the perspective of adults with autism to the autism. So this podcast was the idea of the Godfather, Scott Biehl, and we want to give him a big shout out for that. Before we get into our content, I want to let you know you can follow us at theautismnewsnetwork.com. We're on social media, that is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can follow me at Dr. Gwynette on Instagram and Twitter. And we hope that you will join us on all our platforms. This podcast will be available not only on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud, but also in video format on YouTube. So without further ado, let's dive into this. First, everybody wants to know, Scott Biehl, any idea why they call you the Godfather?
Honestly, I don't know where it came from. It's just been a long time name.
Yeah.
I have many godchildren as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have no clue where the name came from. It just has stuck.
Yeah, it has. It's probably due to just the way that you're such a natural leader. You have quiet strength. You take care of a lot of Autism News Network participants by looking out for them, watching their back. Just being somebody we can always count on. And each time that you come through and save the day, I always say, that's why they call him the Godfather.
Yep.
Yeah. So you had an article that we were going to get into, and it's kind of a medical article. Do you want to give us just the gist of what it says?
Basically, what it says is they're finding more and more relation between autism and gestational diabetes in mothers. They're finding that there is a link there. They're not sure exactly what it is yet, but there is something there. It's very interesting to me because it sounds a lot more plausible than, oh, it's caused by vaccines, or, oh, it's caused by the diapers that I put on my child. I have heard so many of these nonsense beliefs. This one actually sounds plausible to me because I have had it since I was born, honestly. You're born with it. It's not something that putting on your child is going to, oh God, it's going to cause autism.
Right.
Not necessarily the case.
Absolutely.
And we're not honestly sure yet that could be the case.
That's right. And this article, which was published in JAMA Psychiatry, so that's the Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry Journal, very prestigious journal. It was a review of 61 studies in mothers with high blood pressure, including the condition called preeclampsia, which involves high blood pressure. And they found a 50% higher risk in their children for autism. So I think you have a disorder caused by poor parenting. In fact, I always say that 3 times to our parents. Autism is never from poor parenting. Autism is never from poor parenting. And again, autism is never from poor parenting. And I think your article here proves that this is a biological condition, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a biological. It's not, poor parenting. It's not something that you put on your child. It's not something you put in your child. It's something in genetics.
Yep.
And this honestly made the most sense to me because most DNA is affected through sugars and whatnot.
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so there's also a link with moms who have type 2 diabetes in pregnancy. So that is another condition where there's a risk. I'm interested, especially to hear from others in our discussion today, Jennifer and Chris and Kyle, have you ever had people tell you that autism is caused by X, Y, and Z and felt like that wasn't necessarily accurate?
I felt like that.
Yeah.
I've heard that it hasn't been told to me, but I've seen it on the internet. Like I've seen vaccines cause autism and all sorts of stupid crap, and I'm just like, no.
Right. And
Yeah, for me, it's been similar to what Jennifer's described. It hasn't really been told directly to me, but I've seen and heard, just mostly rumors and things that aren't necessarily true, that you hear along like the grapevine.
yeah, exactly. I think it's created an environment where parents are already feeling stressed and what should I do? But they don't need guilt feelings like, hey, you did this because you ate this during pregnancy or you took these types of vitamins, so absolutely. Yeah, and the diabetes factor seems like a real risk. Like in this study that the Godfather mentioned, type 2 diabetes, can raise the risk of autism by 45% in moms who have offspring. They end up having autism. So it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's quite a large amount there.
Yeah. And when we look at all what we call prenatal, which means before birth, and also perinatal, which means around the time of birth, there are all kinds of conditions that can be associated with autism. And again, what we're pointing out here is in diabetes and high blood pressure that it not necessarily causes it, but it raises the risk. So it might be associated. But almost every pregnancy and birth complication can be associated with autism. And that includes things like infections, things like a crash C-section. If there's an umbilical cord accident, sometimes it'll be, giving the baby less oxygen. All kinds of, if the baby has high bilirubin, like if the baby's skin is more yellow at birth, that can be associated. So we're still in the very early stages of unpacking those medical mysteries and how they connect to autism. What do you guys think in terms of going forward? Do you feel like this type of research is helpful?
I think very helpful because I find the earlier you get treatment, the better off you have a chance of, I don't want to say normal because I don't like that term. You have a chance at a quality of life rather than, you should just be institutionalized, which I heard that a lot as a kid.
They said that about you.
Yeah, I actually have heard it from probably 10 or 15 different school officials back when I was in elementary school. He probably should be institutionalized. What? No. And even my parents said, not happening. We're doing something else.
Right.
And so I think it'll definitely help with bringing Plan B out instead of, okay, let's institutionalize. No, you deserve the right to be a free individual and live a life rather than be stuck in a center.
Mm-hmm.
Agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Quick question for you, Dr. Gwynette. I know we lost at the Shark Tank. That one that actually won the Shark Tank, they were doing something with the gestational diabetes. Do you think that would eventually help to possibly slow down the amount of autism we see?
Well, Yeah, you make a great point. We wanted to tip our hat to the winners of this year's MUSC Shark Tank Innovation Week contest for clinicians. And that goes to Dr. Connie Gill, and that's Guille. Dr. Gill and her team came up with a system of screening expecting mothers for substance abuse. And they came up with a very innovative system of using text screenings and then expedited evaluations and treatment for moms who were struggling to stay sober during pregnancy. But yes, absolutely, that would decrease the risk overall to any pregnancy, but it would make sense that it would also potentially decrease the risk of autism just because that pregnancy would be less complicated. You'd be less likely to have low birth weight and other, preterm labor, some of the other factors that can overlap between risk for autism and risk associated with moms who are using substances. So, no, absolutely.
If somebody would like to share like a personal moment that like you had in like from your past where somebody said to you, like you or your parent, like it's your fault or you should do this, that really had an impact on you personally. Like Scott, you were saying that several people told your parents at least that they should institutionalize you. Like, how did that affect you knowing that, and how did that affect your parents? And I mean, could we think outside the box? Like, what if we so respected a person of authority or really didn't know much about autism and we just went with their advice? Like, how do you think that would affect just individuals in general? I mean, is that something that you've personally had an experience with? Like somebody has said, you did this and this is why you're like this? Or is this something that's just kind of was said to your parents who kind of communicated it to you?
It was said to my parents, and I happened to be present in the room at the time. It was one of many IEP meetings, but this particular professional was removed from my life, thank God, the following year, because I did not have them again. Mm-hmm. And I was given somebody else who said, well, no, you need to be in X, Y, and Z type therapies, OT, speech, things of that nature, where I was able to develop some communication skills as well as general skills for life.
That's awesome. So you got the help needed to flourish.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's huge.
Definitely huge.
Yeah. And that's really what it's all about, is trying to get the help needed as early as possible.
Definitely.
So thanks for sharing that article, Godfather. And this is hopefully going to lead to more discussions and more discoveries of articles as they come out. We're talking about them right here on the Godfather of Autism News podcast. We're going to transition now over to Jennifer, who has a really cool story that we learned about.
Yeah, I picked it up. When I was like younger, like elementary, some of middle school, I was always called that weird kid. I didn't have many friends, always kind of alone. Sucked.
Yeah, that's really hard. And a lot of people have experienced that. And it's not easy, is it?
No.
It really is not. Bullying sucks.
Has everybody in this podcast been victims of bullying in the past?
To an extreme extent, yes.
Yeah.
I've either been bullied or I've been called odd, and never been able to make many friends in school and other stuff. I usually stuck with people who were similar to myself.
I remember middle school only having like one or two friends. Like, I don't know. I didn't have that many. I have an okay amount now, but.
Yeah. And Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I've had a little experience that way with being bullied. Had a bit of a funny turnaround with one bully in particular through my years between elementary school and middle school, oddly enough.
It's the worst.
It was kind of funny that in the end, because it ended up where he'd bother me in between going to the bathroom in class in like elementary school. I guess he'd come down from up over the hill and just come and bother me for what reason I have no idea. At least from memory it seemed that way. But one day at a bowling alley, like years later, I come across him. I'm going to head to the bathroom from playing some bowling, and his girlfriend yells at him just as he starts to turn around to follow me.
That's like,
I couldn't help but kind of laugh once I got into the bathroom a little quietly, like, oh, well, there goes the end of that experience.
That's awesome.
It's like, oddly enough, it's like, can't say that'll ever happen again for me.
I remember
If
having
something does start up like that.
I remember having these quote unquote friends. They would just be friends with me for a while and then they just ditch me. Like out of nowhere. I don't know if anybody else has had that.
I've had that happen in middle school before.
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times.
So what are your thoughts and feelings about that? Like why would do you have any idea why somebody would do that?
I don't know. Something said about me. I don't know.
Sometimes it can be something like a rumor started from somebody who doesn't like someone, or it could be they get involved in the wrong crowd and just,
I don't know.
Strange things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the way school life can be.
Like in those moments when people are being ugly to you, it obviously hurts. Like, are you able to come through those, or have you learned how to come through those and gotten to a point where it's not a you problem, it's a them problem? Like when they're doing the behavior, it's really, you're affected, but they're actually doing the behavior. Have you been able to do that?
I've learned a lot through the years. It used to always get to me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get to me as much as it used to.
Mm-hmm.
The things that bothered me years back, I mean, occasionally it can still kind of get me going, just not as often.
Yeah. How has the bullying affected everyone's self-esteem?
Severely. Like have zero confidence in anything, really.
Took years to rebuild self-confidence.
Really?
I usually blame me for everything. Yeah.
I am actually the same, Jennifer.
Yeah.
So what might be helpful? What would be helpful for you?
I don't know.
Not sure.
I mean, it's slowly building back up.
Huh?
It's slowly building back up.
Yeah.
You have to be around a lot of really good family and
Yeah, for me, it's mostly the support that's been helping me build myself back up.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, in the last 5 years, I've had a support network with the adopted family that I'm pretty much living with. With them for 5 years. I hadn't had any self-worth prior to them, but the things I've done, like helping out with chores around the house and stuff, has actually started building my confidence because they've actually appreciated it.
Excellent.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, this is exactly the type of thing that I'm so glad and proud of you guys for sharing, because it is hard and you're not alone. And I think it's beneficial for our audience to hear about that vulnerability and how it has an impact on self-esteem. And here we are in adulthood now, and it's still, something that hurts. But part of the Autism News Network's success, I believe, is that we are supporting one another. And and interacting and learning together how we can share our story. Yeah, it's really good. I was going to pivot now to another really cool article from Newark, New Jersey. And Jennifer, did you mind sharing that with our audience?
Oh, hold on, let me pull it back up. Do you want me to just read it or just?
Or you can just summarize it.
Okay, well, I don't need to pull it back up then. So police found this little boy just walking around. Apparently, he just walked off from his home, and police decided, hey, let's just drop him back at his house. And the boy had autism. I don't know how to.
No, yeah, it's really cool because I guess there was a rainstorm and this kid left his house, right? And his parents
Yeah.
were freaking out, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
And then the police were able to find him and they took him back home, and his parents, basically were beside themselves with relief.
Mm-hmm.
Grateful.
Any parent would be.
Yeah.
And we call that wandering or even elopement. It's a big issue in autism where children will wander off out of the home, even though the parents are trying to keep an eye on them. You just can't monitor someone 24/7.
There's no amount of locks that can stop it.
It can be dangerous with things like traffic and also people falling into lakes and drowning. So we rely on the police to help locate missing persons, and this was a very happy outcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Jennifer. So, go ahead, Chris. You're going to say something?
I said it was good that they were able to get him back home.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're going to go to another article now. Kyle, you have some really cool stuff to share with the audience.
Yeah, I looked up, with your help, Dr. Gwynette, I looked up a article on 4 friends, I guess you could call them, that live in, if my phone worked with me here. There we are. All right. 4 friends who live near a place called Renfrewshire. They teamed up for an online festival to get people all over their county to dance in their living rooms to raise cash for autism.
Cool.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so like
They started
mobile
they started a Facebook Live event doing this, which thousands of people all over the area saw and helped to raise money for I guess it's a nonprofit. I'm not sure. It's called Always Included.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? So you got 4 DJs in the UK. They say, you know what? We can't have a concert, so we're going to have people rave at home and raise money for autism. What was the amount, Kyle?
It was 2,000 British pounds, which equivalent comes out to about $2,509 US.
Sweet.
Towards the center that
nice.
they built, that they're helping to build.
Impressive.
That's so cool.
A center for autism in their local community.
Yeah, that is great. And people just raving in their homes, chair raving. Yeah,
That is awesome.
that really is. So even in spite of the pandemic and in spite of the challenges autism faced, these 4 friends still found a way to overcome and to show their support. That's amazing. Cool. Well, Kyle, thanks for sharing that. And Erin, you have a story that's more in the medical realm that we wanted to share.
Sure. It's called New System Shown to Improve Early Diagnosis of Autism. And so, in essence, the Indiana University School of Medicine was trying to get early diagnoses of patients because we know that early diagnosis has better outcomes. And so they were able to take their typical process took 9 to 12 months for somebody to get in for a diagnosis, and they were able to decrease it to just 62 days. That's a huge decrease. And so what that allows people to do is to get into therapy sooner. And Scott, you were talking earlier about how the first person you went to said institutionalized, but then the next person you went to said, no, let's do some therapies. And from what I understand, like therapies were helpful, correct?
Very.
So like there's a big difference when you go from, 9 to 12 months on a waiting list down to, 2 months or less. So that you can do lots of therapy in those.
Tons.
Yeah.
So
I was
is-
wondering if anybody else had some good therapy experiences like that you thought were helpful.
One of the
Pretty
things
much
I found that helped is having groups like this
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all the social interaction with other people who have autism.
Yeah, these always help.
That's amazing.
It's actually a very good emotional uplift.
Can anybody remember back to like their preschool years? Any therapies that you felt were helpful or not so helpful?
Well, the OT teacher trying to teach me to catch a ball, that was kind of useless, but for the most part, a lot of the other therapies, like I had a lot of trouble actually handling money, like picking it up off a tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
We worked with that. Penmanship, it's still atrocious, but if we had left it the way it was, you'd still be reading hieroglyphics out of me because my handwriting sucks.
If I don't take my time, my handwriting is like a doctor's chicken scratch.
Just pretend to be a doctor.
So those therapies with the fine motor skills, it sounds like were beneficial.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't have any kind of diagnosis until late in life.
Mhm.
How late in life was that, Chris?
It wasn't until my stepmom got involved in my life that she had noticed something different.
You
Remember
don't
what
mind me
that
asking
was?
about what age?
I think early teens.
Wow.
I think
Mine wasn't.
somewhere near my teens.
Mine was all over the board. I was first diagnosed with a whole bunch of different diagnoses, young ADHD and all sorts of things. And over the years, they just kept adding more and more diagnoses. And finally, I ended up with my school, went to a professional who did a really broad, like 300 random question test and ended up diagnosed with, at the time, I don't know what it's called nowadays, but at the time I was diagnosed with Asperger's when I was like 15, 16 years old.
It's still the same thing. As far as I know.
Yeah, and for the audience, Asperger's is conceptually somebody who has high abilities and still is on the spectrum. And technically, the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder has kind of trumped that Asperger's diagnosis now because we want everyone to have equal treatment and equal access to services. So yeah, Asperger's is a little bit of an older term, but it still conveys meaning to many people.
And to a lot of people, that term comes with a negative meaning due to the violence aspect on that side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotten away from that term.
Yeah, and I think breaking some of those stereotypes is what we're all about here at the Autism News Network. So I wanted to be conscious of our time and remind you that this has been the Godfather of Autism News podcast. We brought you several articles today from the world of medicine, also from the UK, and also from as far away as Newark, New Jersey. And we've been joined today by Jennifer, Kyle, Godfather, and Chris, and also Erin. Well, this has been the Godfather of Autism News podcast. You can follow me at Dr. Gwynette on Instagram and Twitter, and please check us out at theautismnewsnetwork.com.
Okay.
Have all kinds of cool content that we're putting out. We have a podcast coming up with Dr. Andrea Boyer, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And next week, we are recording with Carrie Magro, who is an internationally known adult with autism. All content of the Autism News Network is written, produced, and directed by adults with autism. And if you had a concept of what people with autism can do, we're going to show you a whole new world of what's possible. The four that have joined me today, they're making a podcast today. And how about that?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you guys for joining. Thank you,
Yep.
Jennifer, Kyle, Godfather, Chris, and Erin. This has been a lot of fun, and we hope to do this again, hopefully in a couple weeks. And
All righty. Thank you guys.
yeah,
No problem.
cool. Until then, bye everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Okay.